The signs are everywhere. AI systems are replacing cognitive workers at an accelerating pace. Robots are taking over manufacturing and service jobs. The unemployment rate tells only part of the story. Millions more are underemployed, watching their income stagnate while productivity soars and wealth concentrates at the top. The fundamental contradiction of capitalism in an automated world is becoming impossible to ignore. We can produce more than ever before, but fewer people have the income to buy what we produce. When automation eliminates human labor from production, but the economic system still requires mass consumption to function, capitalism faces an existential crisis. This isn't a distant future scenario. It's happening now. The question isn't whether capitalism will collapse under the weight of this contradiction, but when and what will build in its place. The good news is that we don't have to wait for total systemic failure to start building alternatives. Communities around the world are already pioneering the structures of a post-labor economy, creating systems where people can meet their needs through cooperation rather than wage employment. This isn't utopian dreaming. It's practical work happening in neighborhoods from Detroit to Helsinki, from California to Scotland. Here's a roadmap for building a post-labor economy in your community, starting small and scaling up as the old system crumbles around us. Why we need post-labor economics now. Traditional responses to automation, job training programs, minimum wage increases, tax incentives for hiring are band-aids on a hemorrhage. They treat symptoms rather than addressing the fundamental problem. Capitalism requires human workers to earn wages that fund consumption, but automation makes human workers increasingly unnecessary and uncompetitive with machines. The innovation illusion promises that capitalism will innovate its way out of the problem, but current technological development is designed to replace human workers, not create new opportunities for them. Artificial intelligence replicates cognitive abilities. Robotics replicates physical capabilities. Autonomous systems eliminate human oversight. Platform technologies create winner-take-all markets that concentrate economic power. Policy interventions have failed because they fight against the economic logic of automation. Universal basic income proposals recognize the need for income independent of work, but don't address sustainable funding or how to maintain political support for transfers to non-working populations. Monetary policy, low interest rates, quantitative easing, stimulus payments inflates asset bubbles that benefit wealthy owners while doing little for workers without assets. Most critically, the failure of capitalism in an automated world isn't just economic, it's a democratic crisis. Advanced societies depend on a broad middle class with a stake in the system. When automation concentrates wealth and eliminates middle-class jobs, it undermines a social foundation of democracy itself. We need alternatives now, before complete systemic collapse leaves communities with nothing to fall back on. Why energy is the foundation. Before diving into practical implementation, we need to understand why energy-based economics provides a better foundation than traditional money for a post-labor economy. All economic activity requires energy inputs. Food production, manufacturing, transportation, communication, AI, and large data centers, everything we do consumes energy. Unlike money, which can be created arbitrarily by central banks or through financial speculation, energy represents actual physical reality. You cannot create kilowatt hours out of thin air. Energy-based currency would be inherently stable because it's tied to actual productive capacity instead of financial speculation. When communities measure value in energy units rather than dollars, they can't inflate currencies, create speculative bubbles, or extract wealth through financial manipulation. Total energy capacity is a cap on what society can produce when human labor is excluded. Energy capacity, productive capacity. More importantly, energy-based systems align economic incentives with physical reality and sustainability. In a post-labor economy where automated systems produce most goods, the real limiting factor isn't human labor, it's energy availability. An economy organized around energy management rather than wage employment can maintain prosperity even as human workers become economically unnecessary. Communities developing post-labor economic systems should start thinking in energy terms from the beginning, even if they're still operating within dollar-based systems. Understanding the actual energy costs of production, housing, and services helps communities make better decisions about resource allocation and prepares them for full transition to energy-based economics when the broader monetary system fails. Start small, implement time banking. The most accessible entry point for building post-labor economics is time banking, a system where people earn credits for contributing skills or time, then spend credits to access other services. It's basically a local currency based on labor hours instead of dollars. Time banking is completely legal. Over 100 time banks operate in California alone, with thousands more worldwide. The IRS treats it as bartering, which means people report the dollar value of services received. But for most community-level exchanges, amounts are small enough to avoid significant tax obligations. How it works practically? Digital platforms track exchanges where people post what they can offer and what they need. Someone might teach cooking lessons for credits, then spend those credits on bookkeeping help. Parents take turns providing childcare, earning credits when they watch others' children and spending credits when they need care. A retired electrician teaches basic home repair skills, earning credits for tax preparation help. The key principle: everyone's time has equal value. 1 hour of any service equals 1 hour of credit, regardless of complexity. This might seem economically inefficient to traditionally minded folks, but the goal isn't perfect market pricing. It's ensuring everyone can contribute and then access services they need. Implementation timeline: free software setup takes about a week. Legal paperwork requires another week or two. Communities can have functional time banking running within a month with 15 to 20 participating families. Success factors: Edinburgh's Leith Time Bank has operated successfully for over a decade, serving 200 plus members, with 74% of participants making new friends and experiencing improved mood. The key is maintaining paid coordinator positions through diversified funding rather than depending on single grants that eventually expire, at least until the community is further along in self-sufficiency. Common pitfalls: Finland's Helsinki Time Bank grew to 3,000 registered members before tax authorities ruled that professional services received through time banking owed taxes based on supposed market value. This destroyed the equality principle and caused the system to collapse. Favorable or neutral regulatory treatment is essential. Communities need political champions who will defend time banks when policy threatens. Start with a pilot group of enthusiastic participants willing to work through initial problems. Focus on skills that don't require professional licensing to avoid liability issues. Create clear guidelines about what services are included and how disputes are resolved. Add community cooperatives for niche services. Once time banking establishes patterns of mutual aid, communities can develop cooperatives to provide specialized services that humans still do better than machines, and likely will for some time. Food cooperatives represent an excellent starting point. Traditional restaurants fail when customers can't afford to eat out, but cooperative food networks provide better nutrition at lower cost to more families. Members contribute labor to community gardens and food preparation, earning credits they can spend at cooperative restaurants or markets. Individual families take what they need for home meals, with surplus going to shared dining facilities at cost. Childcare cooperatives solve one of the most pressing needs, as formal childcare often costs more than parents earn. Cooperative models where parents share watching children, supported by time banking credits, provide quality care while building community connections. Housing cooperatives can start small, groups of families pooling resources to renovate foreclosed properties, then managing them cooperatively. This builds toward larger community land trust models while providing immediate housing security. Manufacturing cooperatives prepare communities for automation transitions. When AI displaces marketing professionals, they can form cooperatives offering AI-enhanced marketing services, charging less than big companies because there are no shareholder profits, while earning decent livings because AI makes them efficient. HVAC contractors can team up using AI systems to optimize scheduling and diagnostics, serving more customers while keeping benefits rather than giving them to corporate parents. The Mondragon Corporation in Spain provides the gold standard. 257 cooperative enterprises employing 80,000 plus workers with revenues exceeding $12 billion. Their cooperative survival rate is 10 to 15% higher than traditional businesses, demonstrating that cooperative structures are economically viable at scale. Key success principle. Cooperatives work best when they reinvest surplus into expanding services and improving facilities rather than extracting profit. Democratic governance by members ensures decisions serve community needs rather than investor returns. Why cooperatives are the best choice? Cooperatives are highly democratic. Every employee owns just one share. Every employee has an equal say in running the cooperative as every other employee. Here's a twist. Employees hire their own managers. Managers may still be needed in larger or more complex organizations, as there will be a need to coordinate efforts and resolve conflicts. Collectively, the employees also determine how much a manager gets paid. Create or partner with community choice aggregation programs. Energy independence is critical for post-labor economies. Communities dependent on investor-owned utilities remain vulnerable to external control and profit extraction. Community choice aggregation, CCA, programs provide the legal framework for energy independence in states with enabling legislation. What CCAs do, they aggregate electricity purchasing power from thousands or millions of customers, negotiate competitive procurement with suppliers, and gain local control over energy sources and rates. CCAS typically save customers 15 to 20% compared to traditional utilities while exceeding state renewable energy mandates by up to 25 percentage points. Current availability, only 10 states currently authorize CCAs: California, Illinois, Maryland pilot only, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Virginia. California has been most successful, with 21 plus operational CCAs serving over 11 million customers. Implementation requirements. CCA formation requires $1.1 to $8.3 million in startup capital depending on customer base size, and takes 21 to 40 months from concept to operation. This sounds daunting, but communities can start with feasibility studies and coalition building while advocating for enabling legislation in states that lack it. Economic development benefits. Marine Clean Energy created 1,300 plus jobs in its first 3 years. Sonoma Clean Power delivered over $100 million in savings over 10 years while donating $5+ million to community organizations. Revenue circulation keeps money in local economies instead of exporting it to utility shareholders. Scale considerations. Communities under 50,000 customers struggle with independent CCA formation. Smaller cities should join Regional Joint Powers Authorities, JPAS, that share procurement and administrative costs while maintaining local program control. For communities in states without CCA legislation, the alternative is advocating for enabling laws while developing neighborhood-scale energy cooperatives. Solar panels on rooftops, community battery storage, and smart grid integration can begin creating local energy independence even before formal CCA structures exist. Achieve full energy independence. Beyond CCAs, complete energy independence requires communities to own and control energy generation infrastructure directly. Distributed solar and storage. Residential rooftop solar combined with battery systems creates resilient energy networks where homes aren't just consumers, but active participants in generation and storage. Current technology allows homes to generate more electricity than they consume, feeding surplus into community energy pools. Community-owned renewable installations. Wind turbines, solar farms, and other renewable infrastructure owned collectively by community members rather than distant investors keep energy wealth local. German villages demonstrate this model successfully, with community-owned installations providing electricity to all residents while selling surplus to national grids. Energy cooperative structures. Formal cooperatives manage community energy assets democratically. Members elect boards that oversee operations, maintenance, and expansion. Over a 20-year period, community energy cooperatives typically provide electricity at 30 to 50% less cost than traditional utilities while building community wealth through ownership of appreciating assets. Timeline, feasibility studies, community organizing, legal structure development, financing arrangements, and regulatory approval typically require 9 to 12 months from initial commitment to actual energy production. Neighborhood-scale projects need 15 to 20 participating families minimum. Community-scale projects with 50 to 100 families provide better economies of scale and resilience. Technical requirements: modern smart grid technology, automated control systems, and AI-assisted load management optimize energy distribution based on actual community needs rather than profit maximization. Communities need members with technical skills or partnerships with technical cooperatives to design and maintain these systems. Energy independence isn't just about cost savings, it's about resilience. When broader economic systems fail, communities with independent energy infrastructure can maintain basic services and quality of life. Create community land trusts to acquire foreclosed property. Housing security forms the foundation for stable communities and human flourishing. When capitalism collapses and foreclosures accelerate, community land trusts, CLTs, provide the structure for communities to acquire property and manage it democratically for permanent affordability. How CLTs work. The community trust holds land in perpetuity. The community calculates a value for the remaining embodied energy units in the property. Residents can lease the property from the land trust for an amount equal to the amortized value of embodied energy over the estimated remaining life of the property. Residents gain permanent residence rights after recovering the full embodied energy costs through lease payments, with zero ongoing payments thereafter. They can pass these rights to children or transfer them to other community members, but they can't sell at inflated prices, use housing as collateral for speculation, or sublet for extra income. A resident's use rights for a leased property is very similar to ownership rights, with the exception it cannot be sold or sublet. A major benefit to the resident is that major repairs are paid for and coordinated by the CLT. If you need to expand in order to move in an elderly parent, no problem. The CLT pays for the expansion and just adds the amortized cost of the energy used onto the lease. New legislation may be required to enable these features. Proven success: 308 CLTs operate in 48 states as of 2022. During the 2008 to 2010 financial crisis, CLT homeowners had foreclosure rates 8 to 10 times lower than conventional mortgages. Burlington Community Land Trust in Vermont has maintained affordability for 30-plus years across 3,000-plus homes. CLTs provide stable homeownership and asset-building opportunities for lower-income households locked out of market-rate homeownership. Economic crisis opportunity. When capitalism falters, foreclosures create opportunities for CLTs to acquire property at reduced costs. Communities can pool resources, time banking credits, cooperative labor, and available capital to purchase foreclosed properties at deep discounts before investors or banks resell them. Renovation and allocation. Cooperative labor renovates acquired properties using volunteer skills tracked through time banking. Members earn credits for construction work, which they can spend on other community services. Renovated homes get allocated to community members based on need, with preference for families displaced by economic disruption. In many cases, people who have lost their income may transfer their home to the CLT and then lease it back and never have to move. No interest, no speculation. CLT housing eliminates interest payments that enrich financial institutions while impoverishing working families. Communities simply recover actual energy costs of construction over buildings' lifetimes. This also prevents housing speculation. Prices based on embodied energy rather than market manipulation make artificial inflation impossible. As an example, the typical value of embodied energy in a 2,000 square foot house is about 400,000 kilowatt hours. If we assume a lifespan of 50 years for the property to recover, the embodied energy cost, the monthly lease payment would be 400,000 divided by 12 times 50 equals 660 kilowatt hours. EU stands for energy unit, so 1 EU is equal to 1 kilowatt hour. Democratic governance. Elected boards manage local CLTS, overseeing housing construction, maintenance, allocation, and community planning. Decisions are made democratically by residents themselves rather than by market forces or bureaucratic agencies. Start CLT development now, before complete economic collapse. Even acquiring a few foreclosed properties and renovating them cooperatively demonstrates the model's viability and builds the organizational capacity communities will need when foreclosures accelerate. Invest in automated production facilities. The final piece of post-labor economy infrastructure is community-owned automation, ensuring that when robots replace human workers, communities benefit from increased productivity rather than watching wealth concentrate among distant AI owners. The automation conflict. Traditional automation creates fundamental conflict between workers and owners. Each efficiency improvement eliminates jobs, benefits capital owners, and harms workers. This leads to resistance against technological progress and fights over benefit distribution. Community ownership solution. When robots and AI systems belong to communities rather than corporations, increased productivity benefits everyone. Automated factories produce goods for community needs rather than corporate profits. Smart systems optimize community resource allocation rather than shareholder returns. Practical applications. Community-owned manufacturing. Flexible manufacturing systems produce what residents need: furniture, tools, clothing, building materials, based on actual demand rather than profit margins. These facilities operate on energy allocation rather than wage employment. Community-owned manufacturing will be local and, to the extent possible, will source all of its inputs locally. Automated food production, greenhouses with solar heating, automated irrigation, and AI-optimized growing systems provide year-round fresh produce. Community members contribute design and maintenance labor, earning credits while ensuring food security. Aquaponics is another option that integrates fish farming for protein into the greenhouses. The two systems are complementary. The greenhouse creates a lot of roughage when food is harvested and prepared. This leftover waste from the greenhouse becomes the base for creating fish food. Fish waste is fed back into the greenhouse as natural fertilizer, drastically or possibly eliminating the need for external fertilizers. AI-assisted cooperative services. Communities develop or license AI systems that enhance rather than replace human capabilities. AI handles routine cognitive work, while humans provide judgment, creativity, and social connection that machines lack. Availability. There is a high probability that many businesses that will fail early when the system starts collapsing may have assets that will be helpful in bootstrapping production. Those assets will have very little value in the traditional economy. The business owners may donate their assets to the community and then join the co-op to help convert those assets into production the community needs. Optionally, a community may confer a benefit to the person contributing an asset with additional monthly EU allocations. Technical requirements. Communities need members with software engineering, robotics, and systems design skills, or partnerships with technical cooperatives that provide these services. The good news is that automation technology is becoming more accessible and modular, allowing smaller-scale implementations. Financing strategies. Initial investments in automated facilities can come from pooled community resources, local bonds, or cooperative investment models. Once operational, facilities become self-sustaining by providing goods and services at energy cost rather than market prices. Governance. Democratic control ensures automated systems serve community needs. Elected boards set production priorities based on member input rather than profit maximization. AI-assisted community planning helps optimize resource allocation and project management while maintaining human decision-making authority. The transition to automated production must happen cooperatively, not corporately. Communities that develop automation infrastructure now, even at small scale, will have the organizational capacity and technical knowledge to expand rapidly as traditional employment collapses. The path forward: building while the old system fails. Creating a post-labor economy isn't about waiting for capitalism to collapse before taking action. It's about building alternatives now, piece by piece, so communities have functional systems in place when the old structures fail completely. Start with time banking in a month. Add food and childcare cooperatives within 6 months. Begin CLT formation and feasibility studies for community energy within a year. Develop automation infrastructure as resources and technical capacity allow. Each component reinforces the others. Time banking establishes patterns of cooperation. Cooperatives demonstrate that democratic ownership works. Energy independence provides resilience and reduces costs. Community land trusts ensure housing security. Automated facilities prepare for the post-labor future. This isn't utopian dreaming. It's a practical emergency response to economic collapse. Traditional employment isn't coming back. AI and robotics are eliminating most cognitive and physical labor. If communities don't provide alternatives to wage employment, they're consigning themselves to permanent economic insecurity. The question isn't whether to build post-labor economics. The question is whether you'll participate in building systems that work for everyone, or watch as amazing technological capabilities create abundance for a few while leaving most people behind. Your community needs you. The transition ahead requires organizers, technical specialists, communicators, designers, caregivers, teachers, builders. Every skill has value in building the future economy. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. What will you build?